You ever have one of those moments where a single sound like a glass tipping over rips your life in two? For me, it was a Tuesday night in my quiet Ohio suburb, pouring a second glass of Chardonnay in my kitchen. The hum of the dishwasher was my only company until I heard his voice, Derek, my son, laughing too loud, too drunk, from the living room. She still thinks I'm her real kid, he slurred, his words cutting through the walls like a knife. I've been draining her for years. The glass trembled in my hand, wine sloshing, and in that second, everything I thought I knew about my life, my son, my home, my love shattered. My house was the kind you'd find on a Zillow listing for charming small-town America, a two-story colonial with white siding, a wraparound porch, and a backyard bursting with marigolds every summer. I'd lived in Fairview, Ohio, for 25 years, raising Derek, paying off the mortgage, planting roots. That night, the air smelled like my lavender candles, their glow flickering on the granite countertops. I was 58, still working, part-time at the local clinic, still setting out snacks for Derek's friends when they came over, still believing I was mom. I stood in the hallway, barefoot on the plush beige carpet I'd vacuumed that morning, the wine glass shaking so hard, the Chardonnay splashed my wrist. Derek's friends roared with laughter, a cruel, mocking sound that made me feel small, like I was the punchline to a joke I didn't know I was part of. "She's too stupid to realize," Derek said, his voice slurring, "not even her real son." I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I didn't storm into the living room and hurl the glass at the flat-screen TV. I just stood there, my toes curling into the carpet, the edge pressing against my skin like it could keep me from falling apart. My fingers went numb around the stem, and I thought, absurdly, I'd just cleaned this floor. Derek knew. He'd known all along I wasn't his biological mother. I'd planned to tell him one day, gently, maybe over coffee at the diner downtown. I'd imagined explaining how my sister Emily handed him to me in a hospital waiting room, her eyes wild, her voice breaking. "Just for a little while," she'd said. That little while became my life. Diapers, school lunches, soccer practices, prom tux rentals, college applications. I was mom, always mom. And he knew, and still did this. He used me. I slipped back to the kitchen, quiet as a shadow, and set the glass on the counter. The garden outside glowed under the moonlight, the sunflowers I'd planted because Derek loved them as a kid swaying in the breeze. Or maybe I just told myself he loved them. My ears buzzed, his laughter echoing in my skull. Not even her real son. I kept replaying it, each word a splinter. All the scraped knees, the parent-teacher conferences, the Christmas mornings, they meant nothing to him. I'd loved him more than my own life, and now I didn't even recognize him. I'd always wanted to be a mother, but life had other plans. At 32, after a string of failed relationships and a job as a medical receptionist, I'd resigned myself to being the cool aunt to my sister's kid. Emily was younger, wilder, always chasing dreams that never panned out. When she got pregnant at 22, she swore she'd settle down. But bipolar disorder, undiagnosed and untreated, had other ideas. Derek was 6 months old when she showed up at my apartment, her hair tangled, her hands shaking, and thrust him into my arms. "I can't do this right now," she said. "Just for a little while." I took him in, no questions asked. I bought a crib from Walmart, learned how to warm formula, and sang him to sleep every night. Emily promised she'd come back, but her visits grew, sporadic, a phone call here, a postcard there. By Derek's second birthday, she was gone for good. I didn't adopt him legally. I couldn't bear to erase her name from his birth certificate. But I raised him as mine, pouring every ounce of love I had into him. I thought love was enough. Fairview was a good place to raise a kid. Neighbors waved from their porches. Kids rode bikes down tree-lined streets, and the annual county fair was the highlight of summer. Derek grew up playing in the sprinkler, building forts in the backyard, and begging for extra cookies at the church bake sale. He was a charmer, big brown eyes, a lopsided grin, always quick with a joke. Teachers loved him, even when he forgot his homework. I worked extra shifts to afford his soccer cleats, his graphing calculator, his trip to D.C. with the 8th grade history club. Every sacrifice felt worth it when he hugged me and said, "Thanks, Mom." But there were cracks. Ignored. In high school, he started pulling away, skipping family dinners, rolling his eyes at my stories, spending more time with friends I didn't know. I chalked it up to teenage rebellion. When he dropped out of community college after one semester, I told myself he'd find his way. When he moved back home at 23, jobless and broke, I welcomed him, thinking he needed time. I didn't see the pattern Derek took, and I gave. Because that's what mothers do. I should have confronted him that night, screamed, thrown every lie back in his face. But I didn't. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the cold kitchen tile, the linoleum chilling my skin through my flannel pajamas. I felt like a broken appliance, waiting for the junkyard. That's when it hit me. I'd raised a man who thought love was a debit card, and the pain of that truth cut deeper than anything he'd stolen. I dragged myself upstairs, each step heavier than the last. In my closet, behind the winter coats I hadn't worn since the last big snow, was a rusted metal lockbox. My hands knew the combination, the 12th of July, 95, the day Emily left Derek with me. Inside was a letter, her frantic handwriting scrawled across yellowed paper. Please, Marilyn, just for a while. I'm not well. I'll come back for him, I promise. She never did. Her mind wasn't right, bipolar disorder, spiraling out of control. I knew it, she knew it, and we both thought a while would be temporary. It became my life. I read the letter again, the paper brittle, smelling of old ink and dried tears. I held it like it was glass. Derek must have found it. That was the only explanation. He'd read it, pieced it together, and instead of asking me, he'd used it. Used me. Asterisk. The bedroom felt like a museum of lies. Framed photos on the dresser. Derek at his high school graduation, grinning in his cap and gown. A crayon drawing from kindergarten. Best mom ever scrawled in wobbly letters. The coffee mug he gave me for Mother's Day, chipped but still on the shelf. All of it hollow now. He'd never asked questions growing up. Not once. I thought it was because he didn't need to. I thought love was enough. But now I wondered, was he just biding his time? I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the lockbox. It held more than the letter. Millie's medical records, a photo of her holding Derek as a newborn, a copy of his birth certificate, proof of how much I'd sacrificed, how much I hadn't told him because I didn't want him to feel unwanted. And now he'd used it all against me. I woke before dawn, the house silent except for the creak of the furnace kicking on. I walked, barefoot across the carpet, the texture familiar but foreign, like the house itself knew something had shifted. I opened the closet again. The lockbox sat where I'd left it, smaller somehow, less sacred, just another object that had failed to protect me. I unfolded the letter, studying the creases, the edges. Had Derek opened it? Had he folded it back so carefully I didn't notice? Or had I been so careless, so trusting, that a grown man digging through my past found the most vulnerable part of me without trying? It hit me like a slap. I'd been stupid. I'd trusted him blindly, thought love made me immune. I thought I was safe. The family photos on the walls, Thanksgiving dinners, at my oak dining table, beach trips to Lake Erie, Derek's first bike ride in the driveway felt like props, staged memories of a life I thought we shared. I should have noticed the signs, the distance in his voice, the way he offered to help with my mail, my bank accounts, my online payments, the times he swore he'd sent something when it never arrived. But I didn't want to doubt him. He was my boy. I still wanted that to be true. I went to the kitchen, made coffee, and sat at the table where Derek used to do his homework. The house was too big now, too quiet. I'd bought it for us, for a family, but it felt like a mausoleum. I stared at the garden, the sunflowers drooping under the weight of their own blooms. I'd planted them every year, thinking they made Derek happy. Now, I wasn't sure he'd ever cared. Grief isn't just about death. It's about seeing someone you love clearly and realizing they never saw you the same way. I sat with the lockbox on my lap, whispering, "You were my boy, but you're not anymore." The words were a confession, a release. The next day, I tried to function. I made the bed, boiled water for my chamomile tea, pulled on my favorite cardigan, the one Derek teased me for, calling it grandma chic. Every movement felt performative, like I was playing house in a life that wasn't mine anymore. The Derek who called me mom wasn't real. He was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw my kindness as a blank check. I kept asking myself, why now? If he'd known all along, why wait decades to use it against me? Why keep up the charade just to throw it away in a drunken brag? Unless it wasn't sudden, maybe it had been happening for years, and I was too blind to notice. I opened the filing cabinet in the study, expecting a few misplaced bills, maybe some old tax returns. But as I sifted through the papers, a knot formed in my stomach. There were withdrawals I didn't remember, hundreds, then thousands, over months, years, small enough to slip under my radar, frequent enough to add up. I logged into my bank app, scrolled through statements, and printed them all. Then I found the letters, envelopes. I thought Derek had mailed bills, a check to the local animal shelter, a pension form all still here, unopened, tucked between folders, and then, the worst, a loan application. My name, my address, my social security number, but the handwriting wasn't mine. The signature was close but not mine. The loan was for $15,000 from an online lender I'd never heard of, the kind that barely checks IDs. I remembered the time my credit card got declined at the pharmacy. How Derek laughed it off as a glitch. How he offered to fix it and brought me ice cream afterward. It wasn't a glitch. It was a test, and I'd failed. I sank to the floor, the walls of the study closing in. Every photo, every holiday card, every piece of this house screamed betrayal. Not just of money, but of trust, time, identity. Derek hadn't made a mistake. He'd made a choice. Fairview wasn't the kind of town where secrets stayed buried long. By noon, I was at the local coffee shop, the bean counter, trying to clear my head. The place smelled like espresso and cinnamon rolls, and the barista, Jenny, waved like always. Marilyn, usual, chamomile, she called. I nodded, forcing a smile. But as I sat by the window, watching moms push strollers and retirees walk their dogs, I felt eyes on me. Mrs. Larson, the retired librarian who lived across the street, slid into the booth across from me. "You okay, hun?" she asked, her bifocals slipping down her nose. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I shrugged, stirring my tea. "Just tired." She patted my hand. "Derek's still living at home. Must be hard, him being, 30 now?" 31, I said, my voice tight. She nodded, lips pursed. "Kids these days, they don't leave the nest easy. My nephew's the same. Always asking for money." I changed the subject, but her words stuck. Did the whole town know Derek was leeching off me? Had they seen what I hadn't? I thought of the times he'd borrowed my car, claiming he was job hunting, only to come back smelling like beer. The way he'd charmed the neighbors, mowing their lawns for cash, then spend it at the bar. I'd defended him, told everyone he was figuring things out. Now I wondered if they'd been pitying me all along, back home. I found a voicemail from Pastor Mike at First Presbyterian, where I volunteered for the food pantry. "Marilyn, just checking in. Haven't seen you at the last few meetings. Everything okay with you and Derek?" His tone was kind, but it stung. Even the church knew something was off. The kettle clicked off, same as every morning. I poured my tea, the chamomile Derek mocked, and let the steam warm my face. Through the kitchen window, the garden looked the same, overgrown, but mine. Derek's footsteps broke the silence, sloppy, hungover. He groaned, rubbing his temples as he stumbled in, muttering about coffee. He didn't look at me. "Rough night?" I asked, stirring my tea. He grunted. "What else is new?" "The audacity." He sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, the same fingers that forged my name tapping away at some game. I stood there, smiling, offering him toast. He didn't know I'd heard him. He thought I was still asleep, not just last night, but always. He thought I was the same woman who believed every excuse, every lie. "Anything interesting?" I asked, my voice light. "Just job stuff," he muttered. "You wouldn't understand." He didn't notice how long I stared, how tightly I gripped my mug. I wasn't trying to stop him anymore. I was watching him, every movement, every pause, every glance toward the study door like it was calling his name. I wondered what else he'd touched, what other drawers he'd rifled through while I slept, but I gave him nothing. Not a hint, not a flinch. "Don't forget the trash," I said, rising with my mug. "Yeah," he muttered. No confrontation, no fight. Just a quiet morning between a mother and son. Except he wasn't my son anymore, and I wasn't just a mother. I was a witness. When Derek left for the shower, I waited until the water started running, then slipped into the study. The desk drawer was ajar, a file pulled slightly forward. The rug near the cabinet shifted just enough to know he'd been there again. I knelt, reached under the cabinet, and found the envelope I'd hidden years ago, a Polaroid of Derek and me at the county fair, his face sticky with cotton candy. It was still there, but something clicked in me. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was getting bolder. I had to start hiding too, not my fear, not my hurt, but my plan. The quiet became my armor. I moved through the house, as always dusting, folding, laundry, checking the mail, but I was cataloging everything, every inconsistency, every smirk, every time Derek offered to take care of something for me. He'd stopped pretending to be grateful, treating me like furniture, convenient, stationary, dumb, but I was watching now, and he wasn't careful anymore. That was his mistake. One afternoon, while he was out running errands, probably at the bank, I dug deeper into the filing cabinet. 3 months of checkbook stubs were missing. 3 months when Derek had helped mail bills, claiming the post office changed their pickup times. I felt sick. Under the study desk, I lifted the rug and checked the loose floorboard where I used to hide holiday money for Derek. The envelope I'd taped there was empty. Every memory felt like a lie. I got methodical. I locked doors subtly, added a combination lock to a box in the sewing room, copied financial records one folder at a time. I kept a notebook under my pillow, listing every forged signature, every suspicious withdrawal. Then I remembered, 3 Christmases ago, I'd asked Derek to mail my will update. He said it was being processed. I found it, unstamped, hidden in the study. If I requested a copy from my lawyer, what would I find? The next morning, I moved like always, slow, measured, invisible, but inside, something had hardened. The sadness was still there, but it lived under something sharper. I wasn't mourning anymore. I was planning. I pulled out the old camera I used for YouTube quilting tutorials, still charged after 2 years. I installed it above the study bookshelf, hidden between photo albums, its lens aimed at my desk drawers. I needed proof. That evening, in my sewing room, my quiet cave, as Derek called it, I connected the camera to a private app. For 2 days, nothing. On the 3rd night, I watched the footage. Derek creeping into the study at midnight. No lights, no hesitation. He pulled open the drawer with my checkbook, flipped through a folder, took a single sheet, and slipped it into his hoodie pocket. I stopped breathing. His movements were practiced, calm, like he'd done it 100 times. I hit pause, his half-lit face frozen on the screen, a slight grin curling his mouth. I wrote one word in my notebook. Enough. I started digging into Derek's life. I checked his social media public posts on Instagram, drunk selfies at bars, captions about living the dream. But his Venmo was more telling. Payments to names I didn't recognize, labeled, drinks, gear, favor. I cross-referenced dates with my bank statements. Withdrawals often matched his nights out. He wasn't just stealing, he was flaunting it. I called my old friend Linda, a retired accountant who'd helped me with taxes years ago. Over coffee at her house, I showed her the statements. Her face fell. Marilyn, this isn't sloppiness, it's systematic. He's been skimming for years. She pointed out patterns, recurring utility payments to accounts I didn't recognize, small enough to go unnoticed. You need a lawyer, she said. Now, I changed my online banking passwords, booked an appointment with a new lawyer under a fake charity name Derek wouldn't recognize, and opened a P.O. box to towns over. He didn't notice. When he asked why I wasn't cooking, I said I had a headache. When he joked about me getting forgetful, I laughed. Forgetful was what he wanted me to be, and that made me dangerous. The lawyer, Julia Hastings, was sharp, no nonsense, in her early 40s. I showed her the bank statements, the camera footage, the forged loan application. She read in silence, her calm making the truth heavier. This isn't just identity theft, she said. It's sustained financial abuse. Over 5 years, Derek had siphoned over $50,000 withdrawals, credit lines, a $12,000 loan in my name. Defaulted and accruing interest. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. I was past crying. Julia outlined the plan. Report the fraud, revoke Derek's access to my accounts, rewrite my will. I told her about the lockbox in my sewing cabinet, an old life insurance policy, an inheritance from my aunt Derek didn't know about. Remove his name from everything, I said. She nodded. We'd restructure my estate, file a temporary injunction, and lock him out. That night, I sat in my car, watching the lights flicker. In the house, Derek was on the couch, scrolling through apps, thinking he still had time to bleed me dry. He didn't know the storm was coming. The next week, I went to the food pantry at First Presbyterian, needing to feel useful. The volunteers, mostly retirees, like me, greeted me warmly, but their eyes lingered. Haven't seen you in a while, Marilyn, said Carol, a grandmother, who ran the pantry. Everything okay at home? I nodded, stacking cans of soup. Just busy. She didn't push. But later, as we sorted donations. She said, "My son went through a rough patch a few years back, kept asking for money, lying about where it went. Took me a long time to say no." I froze, a can of green beans in my hand. "How'd you handle it?" "Got a lawyer, changed my locks, prayed a lot," she said, smiling sadly. "He's better now, but it broke my heart first." I didn't tell her about Derek, but her words stayed with me. I wasn't alone. Other mothers, other families, had faced this. It didn't make it hurt less, but it made me feel less like a failure. At the grocery store, I ran into Jenny from the bean counter. "You look tired, Marilyn," she said, bagging my apples. "Derek's still job hunting. He's figuring things out," I lied, the words automatic. She nodded, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here." Fairview was watching, not with judgment, but with concern. I'd spent years building a life here, volunteering, chatting at block parties, waving from my porch. Now I realized they'd seen Derek's laziness, his charm masking his lies. They'd been waiting for me to catch up. For a week, I made invisible moves, unsubscribed Derek from my digital accounts, rerouted mail to the P.O. box, consolidated accounts with my financial advisor. He didn't notice the thinning folders in the study, the silence when I stopped asking for his help. But he started hovering, asking odd questions. "What happened to Aunt Ruth's inheritance?" I smiled. "You handled that, remember?" I opened new accounts under a trust Julia created, shifted my Social Security deposits, paid property taxes early, rewrote my will. Derek's name was gone. I felt like I could breathe again. I invited Derek to brunch, like old times. I had said. He agreed, smug, thinking I was still his fool. I set the table with his favorite blue china, made egg salad he loved, brewed his favorite coffee. I wasn't impressing him. I was staging the moment. We ate quietly. He talked about a trip with friends, hinted at money. I nodded, sipped my coffee, refilled his cup. When he reached for the last sandwich, I stood, walked to the buffet, and placed a thick envelope in front of him. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. Then he opened it. Eviction notice, police report, fraud case, reference, will revision, power of attorney revocation. His laugh faded. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. "It's your final warning," I said. "You've been removed from every account, every document. You have 30 days to leave," he scoffed, shoving the papers away. "You're being ridiculous." "I have video of you forging my signature," I said. "Bank records, surveillance footage, witnesses, and a lawyer who doesn't need your permission." His eyes narrowed. "I'm your son." "No, you're not," I said, my voice steady. "You were someone I raised, someone I loved. But what you are now is a thief." He stood, his voice rising. "You'd throw me out over money." "No," I said. "I'm throwing you out because you took everything: my dignity, my peace, my trust, and you didn't even blink." The doorbell rang. 2 officers stood on the porch, calm, official. Derek tried to argue, but I played the recorder. His voice, bragging to his friends about draining me, his face drained of color. The officers issued a notice to appear, an eviction order, and a ban from my accounts and property. He had an hour to pack. He didn't pack. He paced, argued, begged. I sat in the sunroom, hands folded, while the police explained his rights. He tried one last time, whispering, "Tell them you made a mistake. Don't let it end like this. You thought I was disposable." I said, "You were wrong." He stood there, shoulders falling, his face flickering with anger, shame, confusion. He turned and walked to his room. I heard drawers open, a suitcase zip, the bathroom door creaked. When he came out, his duffel was half packed, his jacket in his arms. He didn't look at me. "I hope you're happy," he muttered. "I'm not happy," I said, "but I'm free." The door shut. The silence was vast, cleansing. I stood in the entryway, breathing. For years, I'd lived under Derek's weight: his moods, his laziness, his needs. Now, the space he left was oxygen. I walk alone now, cook for myself, small meals, no extras. The police didn't file criminal charges, but the fraud department froze his accounts. Julia finalized the legal ban, the new will, secure. Derek sent 2 emails, one angry, one saying, "I miss you." I kept the second, not because I believed it, but as a reminder. You only say sorry when you've lost what you took for granted. Fairview feels different now. I volunteer at the food pantry again, And the regulars don't ask about Derek anymore. They talk about their grandkids, the new library wing, the county fair. I smile, laugh, feel lighter. I've started gardening again, planting zinnias instead of sunflowers. They're mine, not his. Last week, over tea and scones at the bean counter, Jenny asked, "Do you ever hear from your son?" I smiled. He never really was mine, but now, I finally am. She didn't ask what I meant, just squeezed my hand. Fairview's still watching, but now it's with pride, not pity. If Marilyn's story hit you hard, smash that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced a betrayal like this? How did you reclaim your life? Share your story. We're all ears. Like and share this video to spread the word, and stay tuned for more real life stories every week. Let's keep the conversation going.